Cruise lines show you the glossy side of cruising. Buffets, pools, smiling crew. But behind the curtain, there are secrets you were never meant to know. I spent hours digging through interviews with crew members, reading shipworker blogs, listening to Life at Sea podcasts, and what I found will change the way you see cruising forever. These aren't rumors. These are 12 insider truths, shared by people who live and work on cruise ships, that pull back the curtain on the hidden world beneath the surface. Ready to dive in? Let's go. Let's start with everyone's favorite, the buffet. On embarkation day, you walk into a feast. Trays of hot food line up in long rows. Pastries stacked high. Fresh fruit arranged like towers. Bread baskets overflowing. Desert carts laden with guzzle-worthy sweets. It feels like a food paradise. And that's exactly how the cruise lines want you to feel. But here's the truth. Not everything you see is brand new. On large ships servicing thousands of passengers, the kitchens operate like industrial food factories. Dishes are prepared in massive batches. Leftovers don't simply vanish. They get repurposed. Yesterday's bread becomes garlic breadsticks. Pasta salad that didn't sell becomes today's fresh version. Crew refer to it as the circle of food. It's not unsafe, it's not gross, but it's not the farm-to-table freshness you might imagine. Imagine, you sit down for lunch. A dish doesn't move. Entire trays of food stay full. At the end of service, the kitchen staff pull those trays away, sanitize slightly, add some garnish, maybe a different label, and voila, they reappear for dinner or next morning. I once saw a tray of desserts whisked away half empty at dinner, only to reappear the next day cut into smaller portions with a fresh topping. No passenger suspected a thing. So, what does this mean for you? If food quality matters, treat the buffet as volume service rather than culinary excellence. For better dishes, go to the main dining room or one of the specialty restaurants on site. That's where food is cooked to order, or at least more freshly. The buffet is about quantity, keeping up with the thousands boarding at once. It's the first glance of how what you see as seamless abundance is actually a system of careful recycling behind the scenes. And while you're eating at the buffet, the crew are heading somewhere you rarely imagine exists, their own world below deck. While you're relaxing on your balcony or sprawling across a king-size bed in a suite, the crew who serve you are often sleeping in windowless bunk rooms below the waterline. That's right, while you gaze out at the ocean, they're tucked away deep in the ship's belly. Crew quarters are tight. 2 or 3 people share a cabin. Bunk beds, minimal storage, narrow halls, shared bathrooms. Their dining area, called the crew mess, is basic compared to the guest. Restaurants. It's stark, functional, not glamorous. Many crew contracts last 6 to 9 months, with only a few hours off when the ship is in port. Imagine finishing a 12-hour shift behind the bar, smiling at you all day as you sip frozen cocktails, then heading down narrow stairs into the ship's bowels, into a bunk room with no windows, to sleep hours before doing it all again. I walked through a crew-only area once during a behind-the-scenes tour. The contrast was striking. Above deck, marble floors, chandeliers, soft music. Below deck, fluorescent lights buzzing, tight corridors, signs reminding staff to keep noise down because others are sleeping. Rooms stacked one after another, the hum of ventilation constant. Why does this matter to you as a passenger? Because how you treat the crew makes a difference. A kind word, learning your steward's name, acknowledging their effort. It all goes further than you realize. Many crew remember the passengers who treat them like human beings, not service robots. And those passengers often get better service, quicker drinks, friendly tips about secret quiet spots, maybe even priority when lines are long. The hidden truth. Crew life is tough, but the sense of community among the staff keeps them going. And sometimes that community includes stories about passengers, especially their cabins. When you close your cabin door and pretend you're in your private retreat, here's a secret. It's not truly private. Your door locks, yes, but the cabin is also part of the crew's workspace. Cabin stewards have master keys. If security suspects trouble, they can access any room. Maintenance staff might enter while you're at dinner to fix something reported earlier. So, from a crew perspective, passenger cabins are service zones that must be accessed quickly and efficiently. Also, your steward watches patterns. They know when you leave for breakfast, when you return from excursions, when you go to bed. The magical, your room is spotless when you return, isn't luck. It's the steward tracking your routine. I once had a steward who always left fresh ice in my room at 6:30 p.m. Why? Because he knew I returned from dinner at that time and liked a cold drink. Amazing service? Absolutely. But also evidence that your routine is being observed. Here's another takeaway. Don't leave valuables lying around. Theft is rare, yes. Crew are vetted, yes. But mistakes happen. The safest place for passports, jewelry, cash is in the cabin safe, not the desk drawer. Treat your cabin peacefully. It feels like home, but remember, it's also part of the ship's workflow. Now, think you saw the wildest party when the ship sailed away? The conga line on deck, the DJ, the drinks flowing? That's the surface. But below deck, the crew parties are even wilder. If you think your sail-away party is epic, you should peek behind the curtain. Most ships have one or two crew-only bars hidden, deep in the non-public areas. Here the drinks cost a fraction of what you pay by the pool. Music is blasting. It's the one place where the crew can truly unwind after grueling shifts. Departments take turns hosting after-hours theme nights, 80s nostalgia, tropical, karaoke. It's not uncommon for the party to last until dawn. Why does this matter to you? Because it explains how crews stay upbeat, friendly, smiling, even after 10-plus-hour days. They've got their outlet. And the funny part? Sometimes those crew get so tired the next morning that your bartender might show up yawning for your breakfast cocktail. If you're wondering how they remain cheerful all week, it's partly because they have these crew spaces, away from passengers, where they decompress. It's rarely spoken about. You won't see it on the guest itinerary, but it's part of the ship's morale ecosystem. Speaking of drinks, you might think the cocktail in your hand is exactly what it says on the menu. Premium vodka, imported rum, small batch whiskey, perfect mix. Most of the time it is. But ask any bartender who's worked long enough at sea and you'll hear the stories of shortcuts passengers aren't supposed to know. Sometimes when a popular bottle runs dry mid-service, the fix isn't to wait for the storeroom. Instead, house liquor gets poured into the branded bottle until supplies are restocked. And then there's the light pour. In the rush of all-inclusive packages or pool bar lines 3 deep, a stressed bartender might pour slightly weaker drinks, stretching the supply, while you wonder why your rum punch tastes more like punch than rum. Here's where the social nuance comes in. Bartenders keep mental tabs on guests. If you tip generously right away, even slipping a $20 bill on your first night, you suddenly move up in their unofficial queue. Your cocktails may get heavier pours. Wait time might shorten. You're served faster. And maybe one drink won't show up on the bill. For example, I once cruised with a friend who made a point of tipping the bartender on night 1. By day 2, the bartender waved him over to the front of the line, poured doubles without blinking, and offered side chats during slow hours. That extra tip turned into hundreds of dollars worth of stronger drinks and smoother service. So, the secret here isn't just what's in the bottle, it's the relationship you build. Treat your bartender well, and you'll get more than a drink. You'll get a different level of service. Okay, let's talk cabins again, but from a different angle. Not all cabins are equal. Passengers often assume that any cabin with an ocean view or a balcony is automatically a win. But the truth? Some cabins are avoided by crew, and for good reason. If you ask crew where they'd never want to sleep, they'll list the same 3 zones every time. Directly above the nightclub, directly under the pool deck, and the very front bow of the ship near the anchor locker. Why? Because noise is the culprit. If you're above the club, the bass vibrates through the floor until well past midnight. Under the pool deck, every morning staff are dragging chairs, setting up loungers, scraping bottoms at 6 a.m. near your ceiling. At the bow region, the anchor chain drops and sounds like a freight train rattling through steel at sunrise just as you're drifting back off to sleep. I once had a balcony at the bow. The view was stunning, especially during sail-ins. But at 5:30 a.m., the anchor dropped and the entire room shook so violently, my coffee mug slid off the desk. I learned quickly why the crew chuckled when I told them where my cabin was. The view was great, but the sleep cost was steep. So, before you book, study the deck plan. Look at what's above, below, and beside your cabin. Sometimes a slightly smaller interior room, midship, on a quiet corridor, can beat the showy balcony if your priority is rest. Don't get dazzled by view and lose sleep. Quiet is often the unsung luxury, and while you're sleeping, or trying to, the ship itself never sleeps. To passengers, cruising might feel like it runs on a simple rhythm: meals, excursions, shows, sleep. But behind the scenes, the ship is alive, 24/7. Departments shuffle, machines hum, lights leak into corridors. The laundry team works overnight, running huge industrial washers and dryers through the night to wash thousands of sheets, towels, uniforms, tablecloths. Kitchens start prep at 3 a.m., so by breakfast the trays of croissants are fresh. In the engine room, rotating shifts monitor systems without a break. Even the entertainment teams will rehearse at midnight when theaters are free. That feeling you get of hearing odd noises at 2 a.m., that cart rolling down the hallway might be the laundry moving to storage. That metallic thud overhead at 4 a.m. could be chairs being set up for the breakfast service above you. I remember staying up late one night, walking the promenade deck while most passengers were asleep. The smell of rising dough, bread gets rolled, proofed, baked, drifted out from the galley. I watched bakers wheeling trays of fresh loaves to ovens while the sun hadn't yet peaked. By 7 a.m., those loaves were neatly arranged in baskets as if they had always been there. The illusion of effortless service, that's just the visible end result of hours of back-of-house work you never see. The secret, there's no downtime at sea. The ship never stops, and neither do the people who keep it running. Now, let's turn to something a little more strategic: the shore excursions. When you book an excursion through the cruise line, you're looking at a big price, and sometimes that price has a hidden markup. Here's how it works. That snorkeling trip advertised at $120 on the brochure. Of that, the local operator might keep only $50. The rest goes back to the cruise line as commission, often 40% to 60% of the fee. That's why you'll often find exactly the same tour marketed on shore at the pier for half the price. Crew know this. In fact, when they get their rare day off, they often avoid the ship's official tour and book privately to save big. So why do passengers still book through the ship? Because of risk and convenience. If you book through the line and your tour is late, the ship waits. If you book privately and your driver gets stuck in traffic or misses the port check-in, you might wave goodbye to the stern as it sails off. The rule of thumb: if it's a short activity, beach shuttle, local catamaran, easy return, booking local is often safe and much cheaper. If you're doing something deep inland, complex, or remote, stick with the ship's official service for peace of mind. Once you understand how the money flows in these excursions, you can make smarter choices, balancing cost, convenience, and risk. Here's another truth. Crew notice everything, especially when it comes to how you treat them. Yes, there's the automatic gratuity already built into your fare, but beyond that, crew are watching who slips an extra tip, who smiles kindly, who waits patiently, who speaks politely. I watched two couples at adjacent tables in the dining room. One couple quietly tipped their waiter on the first night. The next day, best table by the window, meals served promptly. The surprise special dessert arrived without asking. The other couple didn't tip beyond the automatic gratuity. They got fine service, nothing wrong, but no extras. It wasn't bribery, they simply treated the crew with extra respect. On a ship where staff may run 14-hour shifts, those little gestures matter. Kindness pays on a ship where crew are working exhausting hours. Even a small gesture, a thank you, a smile, remembering a name, often comes back to you multiplied. Now, here's one you might not expect. The ship has a secret jail. No, it's not glamorized, it's not big. But yes, there is a holding cell, usually tucked away in the bowels of the ship, hidden from public view, sometimes called the brig. It's there for a reason. If a passenger becomes violent, commits theft, or drinks themselves into a dangerous state, the brig is where they go until the ship reaches port. The cells are functional, bare rooms, maybe a bolted bed or bench, barely furnished. But for the passenger inside, vacation over. They'll be escorted off at the next port, often into the hands of local law enforcement, and depending on what they did, they may also be banned from cruising with that line again. I once saw a passenger escorted down a back corridor by security. While the rest of us danced in the atrium, that person's trip ended in a locked room deep down, unseen. The brig is rarely used, thank goodness, but it's there. And it's a reminder that a cruise ship is still a ship of rules, a controlled environment, and sometimes very real consequence. Behind the smiles, the crew are also under strict rules, especially when it comes to passenger relationships. To you, the bartender seems friendly, the steward goes the extra mile, the entertainment staff are always up for a chat. But here's the truth. Crew live under codes of conduct. Relationships with passengers, absolutely forbidden. Friendships beyond a certain point, closely monitored. If a crew member breaks the rule, the consequences can be career-ending, instant dismissal, contract termination, sometimes blacklisting from the industry entirely. Does that mean it never happens? Not exactly. Months at sea blur boundaries, and yes, there are whispered stories of crew sneaking off with passengers in port, or friendships turning into more. But for the crew member, the stakes are sky high. That warm bartender, usually just top-tier service. That genuine smile, probably professionalism, not romance. For passengers, it's vacation fun. For crew, it's discipline and career risk. The secret isn't romance, it's restraint. Finally, disembarkation day. For passengers, the last morning already feels hectic. Packing bags, lining up at customs, dragging luggage toward buses. But compared to what happens below deck, you've got it easy. For the crew, disembarkation day is the hardest day of the week. Hundreds of cabins must be flipped in a matter of hours. Beds stripped, bathrooms sanitized, carpets vacuumed, bars restocked. Deep cleaning tasks executed. Remember, many of these same crew were still working late into the night running activities and entertainment the previous evening. There is no break. I asked a steward once, "How does it feel?" He said, "Imagine running a marathon, then being told to run another one straight after. By the time new passengers arrive in the afternoon, the ship looks flawless. But what they don't see is the exhaustion, the race against the clock, the army of crew working behind the scenes to make that illusion possible. From the outside, it looks like polished perfection. What they don't realize is the engine of chaos underneath, that seamless welcome you receive, built on pure hustle. So, those are the 12 truths cruise workers know, but passengers rarely see. Let me repeat them briefly. The buffet isn't always as fresh as you think. Crew quarters are basically a different world. Your cabin is never truly private. Crew parties are wilder than passenger parties. Not all drinks are equal. Some cabins are avoided even by crew. The ship never sleeps. Excursion kickbacks are real. Crew notice everything, including who tips and who doesn't. The ship has a secret jail. Behind the smiles, crews have strict rules with passengers. Disembarkation day is pure chaos behind the scenes. Which one surprised you most? I'd love to know in the comments below. And if you want to cruise smarter, check out the next video on screen right now and join our free sailing community through the link in the description. Your voyage is just beginning. Bon voyage.